What's up, everyone? My name is Mistic. Welcome to Mistic Rex. Today, we have another video by Salmonella Academy. Creative weapons of the medieval era. The only ones I can think of are like the catapult, but is that creative? I don't know. But let's get into it and see what they actually were.
Hey kids, when most
Hello.
people think of the Middle Ages, they think of them as being like humanity's dumb teenage years, where all we did was play harpsichord in our room and burn heretics with our friends. But that's not
I
entirely
think of
true. In
art,
fact, I
even
would
though
argue
that's
that the medieval era
Renaissance.
saw just as much genius as any other period in
Okay.
time. It's just most of that genius went towards finding new and creative ways
Hmm.
to brutally slaughter those you disagree with. Here's a few highlights. First, we'll talk about the werewolf. So,
Hmm.
as you can imagine, medieval castles were not easy to break into. They were
Mm-hmm.
basically like those jungle gym things at Chuck E. Cheese's. Massive in size,
I hated
intentionally
those.
confusing layout,
Mine was
security
so
everywhere, and
bad.
by the end of your visit, you'd probably end up with some kind of disease.
Yeah.
So in order to help penetrate fortresses,
Someone shit
medieval armies would
on the
often
slide.
utilize siege weapons, one of the most popular of which was the
Hmm.
trebuchet. Now this device is interesting enough on its own, but it gets better. So around 1300 AD,
Mm-hmm.
King Edward I of England was in the process of invading Scotland. However, one fortress known as Stirling Castle was giving him a lot of trouble. He laid siege to the building for many months without any real progress. Then one day he woke up and had a revelation. Hey guys, listen, why are we wasting our time building all these regular sized
Mm-hmm.
trebuchets when we could just build one giant one and call it a day? So that's what he did. This gargantuan war machine was known as the Warwolf and stood at around 6 stories tall. To give a
Hmm.
bit of perspective, this is about as tall as King Kong was in his largest film depiction.
I
So
never
basically, picture a
watched
giant
that.
fucking ape launching
So.
boulders like they're baseballs, and you've got a pretty good idea of what the Warwolf was capable of. It
Mm-hmm.
was so intimidating that when the Scots saw the English constructing the beast outside the castle, they immediately surrendered out of fear. But then Edward was like, ha, fuck that, I'm gonna test this bad boy out,
Uh-oh.
and proceeded to take pot shots on the castle anyway. Another devious
Oh, it
product of the Middle
worked.
Ages was a
I thought
flammable
it
substance known as
wouldn't.
Greek fire. Contrary to
Hmm.
popular belief, Greek fire was not invented by the ancient Greeks. Rick Riordan, you lying prick. It was actually invented in the 7th
Then I
century
watched
AD by
that
the
movie.
Byzantines, who happened to inhabit Greece at the time.
Okay.
Historians still don't know exactly what it was made of, but they do know that it acted a lot like napalm, sticking to ships, sticking to people, even floating and continuing to burn on the surface of the water. The
Hmm.
Byzantines also had these siphon-like tubes that they'd put on the front of their boats to pour Greek fire on the enemy, kinda like makeshift flamethrowers. These were retired pretty quickly though, mostly because when you put the words makeshift and flamethrower next to each other, you're bound to run into some problems
Yeah.
eventually. Our
Who would
next
have
bright idea comes from a woman known as Olga of Kiev. So Olga was a princess who ruled the area around the capital of modern-day Ukraine from 945 to
Okay.
963 AD. And she had quite a track record for being just a total badass. For
Ooh.
example, the Drevlians, a tribe of people under Kiev's control, once sent 20 men to Kiev in order to convince Olga to marry their prince, under the pretense that if they did marry, the prince could claim her rule over Kiev. In
Mm.
response, she had all 20 of them buried alive. She then sent a
Nice.
letter to the prince saying she accepted his proposal, but she would need a bunch of his most distinguished governors to escort her on the journey. Once the
Hmm.
men showed up, Olga was like, "Hey guys, long
Bury
journey,
him.
huh? How'd you like to take a bath in this here bathhouse?" They were like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." "Okay, have fun, you guys." Man, it's like a sauna in here. It is a sauna, dipshit. You have a point. So long
Yeah.
story short, this lady just did not give a heck. My favorite story about her
No
starts with her
marriage.
besieging a Drevlian city that refused to pay tribute to her. The people in the city were already well aware of the type of rampaging that Olga was capable of, so they were already scared shitless. But when she showed up, she was like, "Alright, you know what guys, I'm gonna play nice. Just bring me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each household and I'll be on my way."
Hmm?
Okay. What are they for exactly? We're just hungry. I mean, we got some food too. We could just give. I'm sorry, did I fucking stutter? Alright, birds it is. Then, once the creatures were in
Ooh.
Olga's hands, she had each of her soldiers tie a cloth-bound piece of sulfur to one of the birds' feet, which was then set alight. The birds were then released all at once, and when they flew back into the city, their nests acted like little piles of tinder, resulting in nearly every house in the entire city erupting in flames simultaneously.
I
And
wish
while
I
the
was
whole
that
place burned to the
creative.
ground, Olga just sat and watched. By the way, it's
Ooh.
worth mentioning that, after her death, death, Olga was canonized as a Catholic saint, presumably around the same
Ow.
time as Saint Tiffany, who went around pushing in the soft spots of babies, and Saint Jerry the Goat Fucker, who, as the name implies, fucked a lot of goats. In conclusion, pay your taxes. To my loyal
Mhm.
subscribers, I'll see you in 3 months. I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Thank you. Did we see him in 3 months? Mm, this is quite an old video, and my voice is gone. I feel like I might be a little bit sick, but I did not expect those. But like, good on her. She was creative, to say the least. But let me know what you thought and what to watch next, and maybe ways to cure sore throat. But until next time, bye bye.